If you believe fate can be cruel, hit subscribe, because mine has a twisted sense of humor. My name's Nova Quinn, 27, ex-diplomatic strategist for the Mooncrest pack, current expert at pretending heartbreak is just caffeine withdrawal. 2 months ago, I watched my fated mate marry my sister. Yes, my actual sister, Serafina, the one with the porcelain smile and a spine reinforced by daddy's money. She called me her maid of honor. I called myself her unpaid emotional hostage. The day she walked down the aisle, the moon hung low, silver and smug. I swear it winked at me as if to say, "You had one job, sweetheart. Find a mate, not lose him to your bloodline." But fine. Fate plays dirty, so I learned to play smarter. I stopped waiting for destiny and started applying for jobs, because when your fated bond combusts in public, the best revenge is direct deposit. Chapter 1. The world of wolves isn't all moonlight and mysticism. It's HR forms, alliance treaties, and egos large enough to block out the sun. And I'm a strategist. My battlefield is paperwork, not claws. So when the Nightbane Alpha, Cassian Drayke, requested a peace liaison from Mooncrest, my ex, Alpha Liam, smug, smile, Arden, volunteered me faster than you could say, emotional liability. Maybe he thought sending me into enemy territory was punishment. Maybe he just didn't want to see me at breakfast anymore. Either way, joke's on him, because Cassian Drayke doesn't scare me. He's calm, collected, and carries power like it's tailored to his bones. The kind of man who could end wars, or start them, without raising his voice. And apparently, he wanted me as his advisor. When I first walked into his office, the air shifted, like gravity decided to flirt. He looked up from his desk, black ink on his fingers, moonlight slicing across his jaw. "Miss Quinn," he said, voice deep enough to make my inner wolf stir for the first time in months. "You've read the treaty?" I had, 3 times. I also noticed his penmanship looked like a prophecy. "Yes, Alpha, I've read worse bedtime stories." His mouth curved. "Good, then you'll rewrite this one." That was how it started. The deal, the spark, the unintentional therapy sessions disguised as political meetings. He wanted peace. I wanted purpose. And somewhere between the strategy tables and midnight briefings, lines blurred. Of course, the universe hates silence. So when the next Moon Council convened, Liam and Serafina arrived hand in hand, radiant, mated, nauseating. Cassian leaned close during the meeting, low enough for only me to hear. "Your sister's Luna title doesn't suit her," he murmured. "You wear authority better." It shouldn't have made my pulse race, but it did, because I was tired of being invisible. And when Liam's jaw clenched across the table, eyes flicking to where Cassian's hand brushed mine, just once, deliberate as a signature, I realized something delicious. He was jealous. I didn't want Liam back, but gods, I wanted him to watch. Later that night, Cassian found me on the balcony overlooking the valley, city lights scattered like fallen stars. "You did well," he said quietly. "Thanks," I replied, sipping my wine. "Nothing like surviving a council of hypocrites and exes." His lip twitched. "You handle chaos better than most alphas I know." You say that like it's a compliment. It is. But it's also a warning. About what? He looked at me then, moonlight catching the edges of something feral in his eyes. People who think they can outwit fate usually end up rewriting it. The wind caught my hair, and for the first time since my bond shattered, I didn't feel broken. I felt dangerous. If I was a rebound, I'd make it the kind that ruined reputations. Chapter 2. Cassian didn't summon me to his office so much as he rearranged the building's oxygen, so I had to follow it to him. There's a difference. The Nightbane Tower rose out of the city like a quiet oath. Glass and steel and the kind of security that says we smile at lawsuits because we already wrote the judge's speech. His door was open. Of course it was. The man didn't need locks to keep secrets. He had silence. "Miss Quinn." He gestured to the chair across from him. Walk me through the Mooncrest trade clause and tell me where they've hidden the knife. Which knife? I sat, crossing my legs, pretending my pulse wasn't doing wind sprints. The one inside the language or the one under the table? The one they think I won't feel going in. He slid a folder toward me, palm scarred in a clean diagonal. Old blade, old war, not a word about it. I opened the folder. Treaty pages, council stamps, the faint scent of silver ink and frankincense. On the third page, a clause in soft legalese smiled at me like a cobra. Discretionary levies in times of resource instability. Liam's signature below it, languid, smug. There, I said, tapping the paragraph with my nail. They included a sliding scale levy that triggers if Nightbane's timber yields dip below a 5-year average. Problem is, Mooncrest controls the rail lines. They can claim instability by delaying shipments. He watched me with the kind of focus that felt like hands. Solution? Parallel routing through the river and an independent auditing committee to define instability, one appointee from each pack, and a neutral third from the city guild. Also, I flipped to the closing page. Strike the subclause that lets them amend by simple majority. It needs a supermajority, otherwise you're consenting to be pickpocketed with a smile. Cassian's mouth curved, barely there. And they'll accept this? No, I said. Not without a concession. What do we have to give? Access to Nightbane arbitration for small claims business disputes. I glanced up. Fast-track decisions, capped fees. You'll become the city's preferred court overnight. It looks generous. It's leverage. He leaned back, the chair's leather creaking like something pleased. You're wasted on people who don't know which way a blade points. My last employer thought I'd make lovely floral centerpieces. Your last employer married your sister. He didn't inflect it like pity or threat, just a fact he set on the table like a piece in a game. Consider this an official offer, Nova. He said my name softly, as if my syllables had edges. Senior advisor, authority to negotiate terms on my behalf. Salary commensurate with people who know where the knives are. The last line almost made me laugh. He got a Luna, I got promoted. Fair trade. Any caveats? I asked. 3. He raised one finger. You tell me the truth even when it makes you tremble. A second finger. You don't undermine my authority in public. A third. You stop pretending your heart broke and start admitting it learned. That's not a caveat, I said. That's therapy. Bill me, he replied. I held his gaze, felt the press of something not yet named tighten across my ribs. I accept. He slid a small velvet box across the desk. Then wear this. Oh, good, I said, dry. Is it my emotional support tiara? Inside lay a signet pin. Obsidian set in a ring of steel with a wolf's head so finely etched it looked alive. Nightbane's crest. It would fasten at my collar and announce to every eye that I spoke for the Alpha, the kind of badge that painted a target and a sanctuary at once. Try not to stab anyone with it, he said lightly. No promises, I said, and pinned it to the lapel of my blazer. Heat ran under my skin like a current. My wolf, silent since vows and white lilies and a stolen future, shifted inside me, awake, alert, interested. Good. His voice dropped. Staff briefing in 10. Nightbane's war room looked like a cathedral, convinced blueprints were prayer. 3 walls of screens, 1 wall of glass, a table the size of a confession. Beta Mara was already there, tall, rangy, rings on every finger, a scar on her mouth that made her smirk permanent. You brought the Mooncrest brain, she told Cassian. How considerate. Saves me hiring a locksmith. Let me guess, I said, setting down my files. You prefer crowbars. She grinned. I prefer outcomes. Gamma Theo lifted a hand from the end of the table, math-bright eyes, hair that had lost an argument with a sleep cycle. I'm Theo. If you give me the numbers, I'll make them sing. Nova. I returned the nod. I prefer they confess. Cassian took the head of the table without doing anything so tedious as declaring it. Presence did that for him. "We have 48 hours before the next council session," he said. "Mooncrest intends to spring a levy clause that will make the timberline unprofitable within the quarter." "Let me see their language," Mara said. I slid copies across to both of them. They hid it under a humanitarian flourish. "Emergency relief for allied communities." I pointed to a footnote. "And they invented a temporary oversight board that dissolves at their discretion." Mara's eyes sharpened. "Cute." "We counter with an independent auditing committee," I said, "plus a supermajority for any amendments and arbitration access." "We package the last piece as goodwill, but it gives us first mediation rights in half the city." Theo whistled low. "That would route every small dispute through us." "Data, fees, influence." He looked at Cassian. "She's dangerous." "I hired her for it," Cassian said. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. The air between us had already said enough. We worked the rest of the morning like that. Ink and logic and the occasional sarcasm sliced thin to keep the blood flowing. I discovered that Mara's smirk hid a strategist's patience. Theo's distracted hover masked a precision that could cut diamonds, and Cassian made decisions like a blade through silk. Swift, quiet, irreversible. By noon, we had a counter-treaty and 3 contingency plans. By 1, we had lunch delivered and my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't deleted because hope is stupid. "Liam, I heard Nightbane offered you a role. We should talk. Privately." I typed, then deleted, then typed again. "Nova, I'm at work, Liam." "This is a mistake. Their alpha will use you to hurt Mooncrest." I looked up. Cassian was explaining arbitration optics to Theo. As if he'd felt the draft of my attention, his gaze drifted to me, held, then flicked to the phone in my hand. One eyebrow, a silent question. I set the phone face down. "Problem?" he asked. "Only if we let it be." I stacked the contracts. "I'd like authority to present our terms directly at the council." "No intermediaries. If Mooncrest wants a show, we give them a performance review." Mara grinned. "I like her." Cassian's fingers drummed once on the table before stilling. "Granted." He dismissed the team. Mara disappeared with the kind of speed that usually preceded a bar fight or a spa appointment. With her, it could be both. Theo left muttering about data pipelines. Cassian stayed, a stillness in the shape of a man. "Liam texted you," he said, not a question. "He's worried I'll be weaponized." I slid my phone across the table. "He forgets I'm not a weapon." "I'm a strategist. Different grip, and if he asks you to come back?" I laughed. It broke a little on the edges, honest as a bruise. "Then he can take a number and ask his Luna if she lends out her staff." Cassian's mouth barely twitched. "Good." I lifted my chin. "Anything else you want to make official, Alpha?" He rose. For a heartbeat, the distance between us measured the entire arc of my life, before and after wound and blade, fate and whatever this was becoming. "Yes," he said finally, "your title comes with a room." He opened a side door I hadn't noticed. Inside, a small office with a window spilling the city at my feet, a sleek desk, a shelf half filled with law books, and, on the center, an object that made my breath stall. A scroll, old, bound in crimson ribbon. Nightbane's crest stamped in wax. "What is that?" I asked. "An artifact," he said. "From the first truce Nightbane ever signed. 200 years ago. Most of the city thinks it burned, and it didn't." He met my eyes. I don't let history catch fire easily. I set my fingers on the ribbon. The wax seal was cool, the ridge of the wolf's head sharp against my pulse. "Why show me this?" "Because you'll need it." His voice thinned to something like a warning. "Mooncrest is about to play dirtier than a clause, and Liam's father has a taste for theater," I swallowed. "What kind of theater?" "Blood oaths and public bindings." He looked out at the city. If they can tie you to Mooncrest on paper, they'll argue you can't negotiate for Nightbane without bias. My laugh had less humor this time. They made me maid of honor. Now they want to make me a conflict of interest. You're not a conflict, he said softly, coming closer. You're a correction. The ribbon slipped beneath my thumb. I didn't untie it. Not yet. The thing about artifacts is they talk, and you should never interrupt them before they decide what to say. Cassian, I said, because someone had to. If I do this, if I stand for Nightbane, Liam will come for me. Let him, he said. And it wasn't bravado, it was weather. Just don't stand alone. For a heartbeat, 2, 3, I forgot about the broken thing in my chest, or maybe remembered it differently. Not shattered glass, but tempered steel, forged and cooled and ready. Would you accept a promotion from a rival just to spite your ex? Or because it finally felt like yours? Tell me what you'd do. The intercom chimed, a polite little sound that somehow felt like a gunshot. Alpha? Mara's voice crackled through. We've got a visitor. Mooncrest envoy. Says he's here to escort Nova to a pre-council briefing. Cassian's jaw went still. Mine did too. Name? He asked, a beat of static. Liam Arden. I set my hand on the scroll, the wax seal cool and waiting. Outside, the city glittered like a dare. Inside, my wolf lifted her head. Escort, I repeated, and smiled the kind of smile that shows teeth. Send him up, Cassian said. The door handle turned, and I untied the ribbon. Chapter 3. If you think revenge tastes best when served professionally, hit subscribe, because mine just arrived in a tailored suit and tried to call it diplomacy. Liam Arden entered my office like he still owned the air around me. Spoiler, he didn't. The man had the kind of smile that made you want to check your wallet and your self-esteem. Broad shoulders, perfectly cut hair, eyes the color of shallow promises. He hadn't changed. He'd just added a Luna-sized ego boost to his scent. Behind him, his beta lingered near the door like moral support wrapped in arrogance. Nova, Liam said smoothly, voice dripping with that fake regret men use when they realize their backup plan upgraded without them. You look different. That's because I stopped crying, I said, and started invoicing. Cassian didn't look up from the treaty papers spread across my desk. He didn't need to. The silence that followed carried his dominance. Quiet, absolute, a warning wrapped in velvet. Liam turned toward him. Alpha Drayke, you've been busy. Hiring a Mooncrest strategist must look suspicious to your council. Cassian finally looked up. Only to those who measure loyalty by bedsheets. The temperature in the room dropped a full degree. I bit back a smile. It wasn't professional, but gods, it was satisfying. Careful, Liam said with that charming tone that once fooled me. You don't know what she's capable of. Cassian's expression didn't shift. I know exactly what she's capable of. That's why she's here. He said it like a fact carved into stone. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like someone's leftover. I felt seen. The meeting lasted 20 minutes, though it felt like an hour trapped in an emotional blender. Liam presented a pre-council briefing full of diplomatic threats wrapped in faux concern. Mooncrest intended to challenge Nightbane's new arbitration rights, claiming they violated the neutrality agreement, which was ironic, considering they'd written the original clause that created it. Cassian let him talk, and talk. Then finally he leaned forward. Tell your council this, he said quietly. If Mooncrest continues to play victim while stealing my territory's revenue, I'll stop being diplomatic. And you can explain to your Luna why her father's factories suddenly go dark. Liam's throat bobbed. He stood too quickly, smoothing his jacket like it was armor. We'll see you at the vote, Alpha. His gaze flicked to me. Nova, I'd like a word alone. Cassian's tone left no room for interpretation. You won't get one. And that was that. When the door shut behind them, I realized my hands were trembling. Not from fear, from fury. Liam still thought I was his. An asset, a shadow, something soft to use and discard. But Cassian had seen through it. He didn't rescue me. He respected me. There's a difference. I turned back to the open treaty, smoothing the papers that Liam's arrogance had crumpled. Well, I said to no one, that could have gone worse. He could have brought flowers. Don't give him ideas, Cassian said from the doorway. I startled, nearly spilling my coffee. You move like a ghost. I move like someone who pays attention, he replied. He crossed the room, stopping close enough that the warmth of his body unsettled the air. You handled him well. Thanks, I said dryly. Years of practice surviving family dinners. Next time, he murmured, don't let him make you shake. I blinked up at him. You noticed that? I notice everything about you, he said simply. It wasn't flirtation. It was observation, dangerous, grounded, real. Later that night, the city pulsed with stormlight. The Nightbane Tower hummed like it knew something was coming. I couldn't sleep, so I went to the archive room, where Cassian kept that sealed scroll. The air smelled like dust, ink, and power. I unrolled the document under lamplight, eyes tracing the faded sigils and elegant handwriting. The first Nightbane Treaty, bound in blood magic. It detailed the oaths of the founding Alphas, and a prophecy clause I hadn't seen before. When two houses bound by betrayal unite through council, the moon's mark will return balance. Council. That word wasn't random. Someone centuries ago had written my job into fate. Working late again? Cassian's voice came from behind me, quiet but rough around the edges. I turned. He wasn't wearing the usual crisp suit, just a dark shirt, sleeves rolled up, throat bare. The sight shouldn't have made my pulse misbehave. Couldn't sleep, I said. Found something interesting. He stepped closer, scanning the parchment. His shoulder brushed mine. The prophecy clause. You knew? I suspected. The archivists thought it was superstition. I didn't. His eyes lifted to mine, moonlight silvering their edges. And now you're here, a strategist from a rival pack, reading ancient vows about unity. Convenient, isn't it? Fate's not convenient, I said softly. It's cruelly creative. His lips curved. That's why I like you. The air thickened, charged. My wolf stirred, restless. I wanted to look away, but his gaze pinned me there, steady, unflinching. You should sleep, he said finally, though his voice betrayed no urgency to leave. I will, I lied. He turned to go, but stopped at the door. Nova? Yeah? Tomorrow's council meeting will be war-dressed in etiquette. Don't flinch when they come for you. I never do, I said, and for once I meant it. Would you let your ex see you rise higher than him, or make sure he choked on the view? Drop your answer in the comments. Chapter 4. The council chamber of Mooncrest Pack was built for intimidation. Marble floors that echoed judgment, chandeliers that dripped wealth, and a crescent-shaped table where power was distributed like poison. I hadn't been inside since Seraphina's mating ceremony. Back then I'd been decoration, the quiet sister, the one who smiled so her mascara didn't run. This time I walked in wearing a Nightbane crest on my lapel, and the room noticed. Cassian entered beside me, calm as a storm just before it chooses where to land. His beta, Mara, flanked the other side, and together we made an entrance that said, "We didn't come to play, we came to collect." Seraphina was already seated, draped in gold, the Luna's crown glinting like it was auditioning for Best Supporting Actress. Liam sat to her left, posture perfect, jaw tight. The moment our eyes met, his wolf surged in warning. My own stirred. Lazy, amused. "Nova Quinn," Seraphina said, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "I wasn't expecting you." "Surprises keep the blood flowing," I replied. "Congratulations again on the marriage. I see the glow hasn't faded, just the sincerity." Gasps rippled across the chamber. Cassian's mouth twitched once. Approval or amusement, hard to tell. The meeting began with formalities. Mooncrest's Alpha Council, led by Seraphina's father, droned through clauses, tariffs, and other ways to make breathing sound bureaucratic. Then, inevitably, the levy clause surfaced. Nightbane's unilateral decision to establish arbitration, Elder Rowan declared, violates neutrality protocols established under Treaty Article 9. Cassian inclined his head. Respectfully, Article 9 grants each pack sovereign control over internal trade mediation. The clause is intact. Until you began poaching Mooncrest merchants, Liam said smoothly. That reeks of manipulation. Correction, I said. It reeks of opportunity. They came to us willingly after you introduced rail delays that inflated their shipping costs. A few elders turned toward me, surprised by my interruption. I didn't wait for permission. Mooncrest is attempting to rewrite Article 9 under the guise of humanitarian protection, I continued, but the subclause they drafted would allow a simple majority vote to modify tariffs without notice. I slid copies of the highlighted treaty to each elder. That's not protection. That's theft wearing perfume. Cassian didn't smile, but the air around him shifted, power humming like low thunder. Elder Rowan frowned. These are serious accusations. I have serious evidence, I said, meeting his gaze head-on, and you're welcome to review the audit logs I secured this morning. Those records are confidential, Liam snapped. Were, I corrected, until your Luna's assistant accidentally sent them to my team in a shared drive. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Seraphina's polite mask cracked for half a second, just enough to show the fury underneath. Cassian leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice smooth as glass. Nightbane will maintain its arbitration clause. We will also open a neutral tribunal for interpack disputes, effective immediately. All revenue will be transparently shared, 50-50, until Mooncrest resolves its ongoing levy irregularities. Elder Rowan blinked. 50-50? Cassian's gaze slid to me. My advisor's proposal. Fair, measurable, and profitable for all. That was the exact moment Liam's composure finally cracked. You're making a mistake, Cassian. You don't know her like I do. She's manipulative, vengeful. I laughed softly. You say that like it's an insult. I prefer efficient. Then, leaning forward just enough for my words to carry, you had a strategist, Liam. You chose a showpiece. Don't be upset the world's applauding someone else now. The silence that followed was the kind that breaks empires. Even Seraphina didn't speak. Her golden eyes darted between me and Cassian, calculating. Finally, her father cleared his throat. Nightbane's proposal will be reviewed. In the meantime, we suggest caution. Emotion and governance rarely mix, Cassian rose, gathering his documents. On that, we agree. He offered Seraphina a polite nod, then looked directly at Liam. You should remind your council that arrogance isn't strategy. And just like that, the meeting was over. Outside, the air was sharp, cold, alive. I exhaled finally, and realized my hands weren't shaking. They were steady, firm, free. Cassian walked beside me in silence until we reached the courtyard, where moonlight pooled like molten silver. Then he stopped. You did well, he said quietly. You didn't just defend Nightbane, you embarrassed Mooncrest without ever raising your voice. Thank you, I said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Years of repressed fury and therapy. He chuckled, low and genuine. Your restraint was impressive. I nearly bit him, I admitted. I know, he said, eyes glinting. I could feel it. That startled me. You could what? He stepped closer and my breath hitched. When two wolves align under shared intent, he murmured, the bond between them hums. Not a mate bond, something older, rarer. I swallowed hard. An alliance? He nodded. Or something becoming one. My pulse fluttered, traitorous and warm. Careful, Alpha. People might think you're flirting. I am, he said simply. A breeze caught the hem of my jacket, cool and sweet. My wolf, long dormant, cautious, lifted her head and pressed closer to the surface. For the first time, I didn't feel the ghost of Liam's bond choking her. I felt Cassian's calm steadiness anchoring her instead. "I should get back to the tower," I said, though my voice came out softer than I intended. He studied me a moment longer, then nodded. "You'll have escort detail tonight. Mooncrest won't take their humiliation kindly." "Good," I said. "I like when they underestimate me." He smiled. Small, devastating. "They won't for long." Later that night, I stood on the balcony of my apartment overlooking the city, replaying every moment. The way Liam's face had twisted when Cassian said my advisor. The way Seraphina's crown seemed to weigh her down instead of lift her up. I thought of Cassian's quiet dominance, his steady faith in my mind. No possessiveness, no pity, just power recognizing power. And for the first time since my sister stole my fate, I realized maybe fate hadn't stolen anything. Maybe it had just rerouted me. If your ex and your new boss both showed up at the same meeting, one smirking, one silently protective, which one would you sit beside? Tell me in the comments. Chapter 5. If you've ever learned that victory comes with fangs, hit subscribe, because my bite was about to get tested. By dawn, I was a headline. Mooncrest traitor seduces Nightbane. Alpha X Luna's sister, now political spy. Love triangle shakes pack council. You know you've made it when the tabloids can't decide if you're a threat, a mistress, or a myth. Mara stormed into my office, phone in one hand and coffee in the other. "You're trending on 3 forums and 1 hate blog. Congratulations, you've achieved notoriety before lunch." "Perfect," I said, dry. "Does fame come with dental insurance?" She dropped her phone on my desk. "Mooncrest leaked your employment contract. They're accusing you of espionage. If this keeps up, the council might suspend the treaty talks." "Of course they are." I leaned back in my chair. "They couldn't beat me at the table, so now they're aiming for character assassination." Mara arched an eyebrow. "And Cassian?" "Hasn't called," I admitted, "which means he's plotting." "Or boiling," she muttered. "And you know what happens when alphas boil." Right on cue, the intercom buzzed. "Miss Quinn," Cassian's voice, low, controlled, rolled through the speaker. "My office." Now, the last time I'd walked into that office, he'd offered me power. This time he looked like he was 2 seconds from declaring war. Cassian was standing by the window, shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms, eyes darker than the storm coiling outside. The morning light carved edges across his jaw, but it was the stillness that frightened me, the kind that comes before thunder. He didn't speak, just handed me a tablet. On screen was a live feed from the city's most popular Packstream channel, an interview with Seraphina. "It breaks my heart," she was saying, eyes glassy, tone angelic. "My sister's always struggled with envy. I wish her peace and clarity, but aligning with Nightbane was a choice." The host leaned forward. "Are you suggesting Nova Quinn is under Alpha Drake's influence?" Seraphina gave a delicate sigh. "Let's just say, the heart can be manipulated as easily as politics." Cassian paused the video. The silence snapped like bone. "Well," I said, forcing a laugh, "she's still bad at subtlety." "Nova." His voice was low, dangerous. "She's implying I coerced you. Let her imply." "She's using old tricks. Paint me weak, make you the villain, control the narrative." His jaw flexed. "And if her lies undermine everything we've built?" I shrugged. "Then we rebuild louder." Something in him cracked, a line between fury and admiration. "You shouldn't have to fight alone." "I'm not," I said quietly. "I have a pack now." He looked at me then, really looked, and whatever storm was behind his eyes found its target. Without warning, Cassian picked up his phone. "Prepare a press statement," he ordered his assistant. "Effective immediately." I frowned. "Cassian," He ended the call, then turned to me. "You're not hiding in the shadows while they use your name like a weapon." Before I could protest, he walked to the center of the office, hit a command on his tablet, and the floor-to-ceiling screens lit up with a Nightbane press conference feed. A sleek journalist appeared on screen. "Breaking news. Alpha Cassian Drayke is expected to address the scandal surrounding Nova Quinn, former Mooncrest strategist." Cassian stepped into frame. Not an ounce of hesitation. "This will be brief," he began. His voice carried through the room, steady as a heartbeat. "Nova Quinn is my advisor, my ally, and the most brilliant mind in either territory. Her integrity is unquestionable. Anyone implying otherwise challenges me directly." He paused, looked into the camera. "And I don't take kindly to liars." The feed exploded into chaos. Reporters shouting, flashes, headlines rewriting themselves in real time. I stared at him, half in shock, half in awe. "You just declared open warfare on Mooncrest Press." "I declared truth," he corrected, "and protection." The fallout was instant. My inbox flooded. Supporters, critics, wolves I hadn't spoken to in years, all had opinions. But one message stood out. "Unknown number, meet me at the Crescent Cafe at noon. No cameras, come alone." The sender? Serafina. Of course it was. By noon, I was sitting across from my sister in the city's most expensive cafe, a place that smelled like power and overpriced lattes. She wore white, because of course she did. "I see your alpha's protective," she said, stirring her drink delicately. "How quaint." "I see your PR training's improved," I replied. Almost believable this time. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You think this little power play will last? Cassian's using you, Nova, just like Liam did. You'll be collateral when it's convenient." "Maybe," I said, "but at least this time I'll burn on my own terms." Serafina leaned in, lowering her voice. "You've made dangerous enemies. Walk away before someone decides you're expendable." "You mean you?" I asked softly. "Or Daddy's counsel?" She flinched, barely, but I caught it. "I'll take that as both," I said, standing. "Tell your husband I said hi. Oh, wait, he's too busy watching the press conference where my boss just outclassed him." Her smile vanished. "You're playing with fire, Nova." "I am fire." And I left. When I got back to the tower, Cassian was waiting by the elevators. His expression softened slightly when he saw me safe. "Did you go?" "Of course," I said. "You can't outwit your enemy if you don't look them in the eye." "Next time, take Mara." "Next time, let me finish what I started." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. An alpha's concession. "Understood." We stood there, the air between us humming again, that strange current of alliance and something more. "She's right about one thing," I said quietly. "I am playing with fire." Cassian's eyes darkened. "Then I'll make sure you don't burn alone." That night, Nightbane Tower's lights glowed like sentinels over the city. The press had turned my name into a weapon, but Cassian had turned it into armor. And somewhere between politics and protection, something else had started to take root. Not dependence, not destiny. Something chosen, something real. If someone publicly defended your name like that, risking everything, would you trust them or question their motives? Tell me in the comments. Chapter 6. It started with the smell of burnt metal. I was halfway through drafting the revised arbitration report when the building shuddered. A dull boom echoed through the Nightbane Tower, deep, deliberate, wrong. Within seconds, the alarm screamed. Red lights strobed across glass walls, slicing through the evening calm. Mara burst through my door, weapon drawn. "We're under attack. East Wing, data servers, move!" I didn't need telling twice. The treaty files were on that server. The only proof we had that Mooncrest tampered with the clauses. I grabbed the encrypted drive from my desk and bolted. Smoke curled through the hallway. Sharp, acrid, too clean to be random. Someone wanted to erase evidence, not lives. Cassian met us at the stairwell, shirt half-buttoned, eyes wolf-dark and furious. "Who's inside?" "Maintenance crew, except there's no maintenance crew scheduled tonight," Mara said. Cassian's gaze flicked to me. "Stay close." "Wasn't planning on sightseeing," I said, clutching the drive tighter. The stairwell vibrated as another blast went off below. I caught the metallic tang of silver dust in the air, a deterrent for wolves. Mooncrest wouldn't dare use it openly. That meant this wasn't a council hit. This was personal. We reached the 23rd floor landing. Smoke crawled across the ceiling like a living thing. Cassian moved ahead, silent and sure. The predator beneath the politician finally unleashed. I'd seen him calm, commanding, strategic. I hadn't seen him like this. Pure instinct in motion. The alpha stripped of diplomacy. He kicked open the server room door. Fire suppression foam hissed across blackened consoles, the air electric with ozone. And standing in the wreckage, gun raised, was a man I recognized instantly, Liam. "Step away from the drives," Cassian said, voice low, lethal. Liam's smile was all polished spite. "Just tying up loose ends." Nova never could keep her files clean. "You're trespassing," I snapped, stepping out from behind Cassian. "Or is arson the new Mooncrest trade policy?" "Funny," he said. "I could ask you the same about treason." He moved like he still thought he owned me, like this was just another argument we'd have before pretending to forgive each other. But Cassian stepped forward, blocking his view. "She's not yours to command," Cassian said evenly. "Not now." Not ever, Liam's grip tightened on the gun. "You think this is about her?" "You humiliated me in front of the council." "No," I interrupted. "You did that yourself when you mistook cruelty for power." Something ugly flickered in his eyes. "Always had a sharp tongue, Nova." "Maybe I should have taught you better." The words hit harder than the gunfire that followed. He fired once, silver round meant to warn. Cassian shoved me behind a cabinet as the shot seared past my shoulder, scorching the air. "Nova!" Mara's voice cut through the chaos as she barreled in, weapon drawn. "Security's clearing the floor. Go!" Cassian didn't move. He faced Liam like a wall of quiet violence. "You just declared a blood feud." "Then bleed," Liam hissed, and vanished through the smoke, retreating before backup arrived. Minutes later, sprinklers rained cold water over smoldering debris. My adrenaline refused to settle. My hands shook, not from fear, but fury. "He came here," I said. "He knew where the drives were." "Which means someone inside told him," Mara said grimly. "We've got a leak." Cassian turned to me, water dripping down his jaw, eyes burning silver in the flickering emergency lights. "You okay?" "Define okay." He stepped closer, gently prying the drive from my grip. "You saved the data." "That's all that matters." "No," I said, breath trembling. "What matters is he's not done." "He's desperate, and desperate men do stupid, dangerous things." His thumb brushed the back of my hand. Unconsciously, maybe. But it steadied me in a way logic couldn't. "Then we'll be smarter." Mara cleared her throat. "Not to interrupt your mutual emotional CPR, but we've got to move. Fire department's inbound, and the council will be next." "Evacuate the tower," Cassian ordered. "Lock down all files. And Mara, trace who accessed the maintenance logs in the last 48 hours. She grinned. "Already on it." By the time we reached the rooftop, the night had swallowed the city in storm clouds. From up here, I could see the fires reflected in the glass of nearby buildings, bright, angry smears of orange against black. Cassian stood beside me, silent for a long moment. Then quietly, "He aimed to scare you." "He failed." He turned, studying me with that unnerving calm. "You didn't flinch." "Not externally," I said. "Internally, my organs filed a resignation letter." That earned the faintest curve of his mouth. "You hide fear well." "I had years of practice. I used to hide love just as well." That stopped him. His gaze softened, something shifting behind the steel. "You don't have to hide here." Wind whipped my hair across my face, rain mixing with the smell of ozone. Careful, Alpha. You keep saying things like that, and I might start believing you. Good, he said. Believe it. The storm broke above us, thunder splitting the sky. Below, sirens wailed and wolves moved in organized chaos. But up here, on the edge of destruction, I felt something like clarity. Liam wasn't done. Mooncrest wouldn't stop. But I wasn't the same woman who watched her sister steal her future. I was the one rewriting it. Cassian turned to leave, then hesitated. Nova, when this ends, whatever you decide, you'll have a place here. Not as my rebound, not as my advisor, just yours. The words hit deeper than I expected. You're assuming I'll survive, he smiled. Soft, dangerous. You will. I'll make sure of it. And when he walked away into the rain, I realized something terrifyingly wonderful. I believed him. If your ex tried to destroy your new life, would you run or would you make them regret ever touching it? Drop your answer below. Chapter 7. By morning, the Nightbane Tower smelled like scorched circuits and disinfectant. Cleanup crews worked in silence, stepping around puddles and ash while wolves with earpieces whispered updates into hidden mics. I hadn't slept. None of us had. Mara slammed a file down on my desk hard enough to slosh my coffee. Found our leak. Cassian appeared behind her, expression carved from stone. Who? Security Chief Jace Turner, ex-Mooncrest guard. He was hired last quarter on a forged recommendation. Guess who signed it? I didn't need to guess. Liam. Bingo. Cassian's jaw flexed. Where is he? Gone, Mara said. Pulled his badge at 0300, left his phone on the desk. Security cameras went dark for 10 minutes right before the blast, meaning he planned this. And someone helped him, I said quietly. Cassian's eyes flicked to me, sharp and assessing. Explain. Jace didn't have access to server blueprints. Those were internal. Someone on our side handed them over, Mara swore under her breath. You're suggesting there's another traitor? I'm suggesting Mooncrest doesn't send one pawn. They send a pattern, I said. And whoever's feeding them information knows my movements too well. Cassian's silence was colder than fury. Then we find them. Fast. The next hours blurred into controlled chaos. I combed through internal data logs while Cassian coordinated sweep teams. Every few minutes our eyes met across the war room, wordless, steady, electric. When I finally found it, a single IP address masking its trail through encrypted Nightbane channels, I knew exactly whose desk it pointed to. Cassian, I said, voice flat, you'll want to see this. He leaned over my shoulder, his scent, cedar and storm, grounding me against the pulse pounding in my ears. Whose ID is that? Mara's. The room went still. Mara looked up from her console, brows knitting. Excuse me? I turned the screen toward her. Access timestamps last week. You logged into the core server from an unverified device. That's impossible, she snapped. I was with you, remember? At the council prep, exactly. I highlighted the time. Someone spoofed your ID while we were both in session. Cassian's eyes narrowed. So someone's not just inside, they're pretending to be us. Mara cursed softly. We've got a ghost. By dusk, we had a name. A junior aide in Cassian's admin office, sweet, forgettable, always smiling, had vanished the same night as Jace. The access logs matched hers. Cassian rubbed the bridge of his nose. They were working together. Mooncrest used the aide to plant Jace, Jace to sabotage the servers. And now they're gone, Mara muttered. Smart. Not smart enough. Cassian's tone carried a quiet finality that made even Mara go still. He turned to me. They'll try to leak what's left of our files. The treaty drafts. Our internal messages. You and I are their target. Again. I exhaled slowly. They want the narrative. We give them a different one. Meaning? I stood, gathering the drive. We leak ourselves first. Cassian arched a brow. You're suggesting, yes, I said. Controlled disclosure. Show the world what really happened. Make it impossible for them to weaponize the truth. Mara grinned. I like her brain. Can we keep her? Cassian didn't smile, but his gaze lingered on me a little too long. Yes, he said finally. We can. That night we set the trap. Mara and I uploaded a fake briefing to Nightbane's public archive, a document filled with fabricated trade data and coded phrases. Within hours, our hidden tracker pinged. Got them, Mara whispered. IP trace, old rail depot, southern docks. Cassian grabbed his coat. Stay here, both of you. Absolutely not, I said. You'll need me to confirm the files. Nova. His voice was pure alpha command. I didn't flinch. You hired me for strategy, not obedience. I'm coming. He looked ready to argue, then sighed, defeated. Fine. Stay behind me. The docks reeked of rust and salt. Rain whispered on corrugated metal as Cassian and I slipped inside the warehouse. The only light came from a flickering bulb over a desk stacked with stolen drives. Jace sat there, typing fast, blood crusted along his temple. The aide, Lena, that was her name, stood beside him, clutching a data stick. End of the line, Cassian said, voice echoing through the cavernous space. Jace spun, gun raised. You don't scare me, Drake. You should be scared of her, Cassian said, nodding toward me. Before Jace could process that, I stepped forward, tossing the decoy drive onto the desk. You've been chasing the wrong prize. He hesitated, long enough for Cassian to move, a blur of motion, one growl, then the sound of metal skidding across concrete. Cassian had him pinned in seconds, one hand around his throat. Lena bolted for the door, but I was faster. My wolf surged up, instinct and adrenaline fusing into something primal. I tackled her to the ground, wrenching the stick from her hand. Game over, I said, breathless. Her eyes were wild. You think this changes anything? Mooncrest owns the council. Maybe, I said, standing, but we own the truth. Cassian hauled Jace upright. Send your alpha a message, he said coldly. Nightbane doesn't break, it bites back. Then he let him go. Jace staggered into the rain, clutching his arm. They'd run, but they'd take our warning with them. Later, back at the tower, Cassian poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed me one. You disobeyed a direct order, he said. I prefer the term creative cooperation. His lips twitched. You could have been killed. So could you. He studied me, eyes unreadable, then lifted his glass. To survival. I clinked mine against his. To making our enemies regret their career choices. We drank. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was charged, familiar, alive. And when his hand brushed mine, I didn't pull away. Chapter 8. It was well past midnight when Cassian knocked on my door. 3 slow taps, a heartbeat between each. I'd been staring at the treaty drafts spread across my desk, pretending the whiskey hadn't hit my bloodstream. The city outside my window glowed like a nervous system, alive, wired, never sleeping. Come in, I said. He did, without hesitation. Barefoot, shirt untucked, eyes heavy from battle, and something worse. Honesty waiting to happen. You look like you're about to resign or confess, I said lightly. Maybe both. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets, gaze tracing the skyline. For a man who commanded wolves, he suddenly looked like one lost in thought. I've been trying to decide how much truth you can handle tonight, he said. Try me. Mooncrest's attacks weren't random. He turned toward me, expression unreadable. They weren't just trying to discredit you. They were trying to provoke me. Why? Because of what I did 5 years ago. He took a slow breath, and I could almost feel the memory weighing on him. I killed Liam's brother, Cassian said quietly. In combat. It was sanctioned, but unnecessary. He challenged me for control of neutral land. I didn't give him a chance to yield. The words dropped heavy between us, like stones thrown into a still pond. Liam's father covered it up to preserve the alliance, Cassian continued, but Liam never forgave me. That's why he wanted you? My chest went cold. What? Cassian's gaze met mine. You weren't just a mate to him, Nova. You were leverage, a way to bind my rival pack by bloodline. When you rejected him after the bond broke, he lost his control. When you came to me, he saw it as betrayal twice over. I sat down hard. The room tilted, truth rearranging gravity. So I was a pawn. Cassian shook his head. No, you were their pawn. Now you're my equal. But I needed you to know before this goes further. This? I asked, voice barely steady. He crossed the room, slow, deliberate, stopping a breath away. Whatever this is becoming between us. The air thickened. The wolf inside me stirred again, restless, curious. You should hate me, he said softly, for what I did. For what it caused. I don't, I said. I hate that they used me to punish you. He exhaled, the kind of sound that belongs to men who've carried guilt too long. You always find the angle no one else sees. It's my job, I said, smiling faintly. Then his hand brushed mine, tentative, like testing a live wire. I didn't plan this, he murmured. You were supposed to be a strategist, not this. An inconvenient truth? His lips curved. A necessary one. The storm outside cracked against the glass. Somewhere between lightning and heartbeat, something in me shifted. The pain Liam had left behind didn't vanish, but it stopped defining me. Cassian, I said, because someone had to. You didn't have to tell me that. You could have hidden it. I don't hide from the people I want to keep. The word keep hit like gravity. Careful, I whispered. You're starting to sound like you care. He smiled, slow and devastating. I do. And then he kissed me. It wasn't a claiming kiss, not possession. It was restraint breaking, confession made flesh. The kind that starts slow, testing, questioning, before giving up and burning. When he finally pulled back, both of us were breathing like we'd survived something. You shouldn't mix politics with pleasure, I said weakly. You started it, he said, voice rough. Fair, I admitted. So what now? He straightened, already halfway back to alpha composure. Now we win. Mooncrest's retaliation will come fast. They'll accuse us of corruption, maybe worse, but they won't see us coming. Us, I echoed. So that's official? He tilted his head. Did you need paperwork? Preferably in triplicate, I deadpanned. He laughed, really laughed, and the sound hit something warm inside me I thought I'd lost. Later, when the laughter faded and the silence softened, I found myself tracing the edge of his mark on his wrist, the faint silver scar of an alpha bond that hadn't been sealed. You never marked anyone, I realized aloud. No, he said. Not until I'm sure. Sure of what? That she won't run when she sees the monster. I met his gaze steadily. Maybe she'll just bring hers to match. For the first time, Cassian looked like a man who believed in fate and didn't hate it for once. Would you forgive someone who kept a secret that big if it meant saving your life later? Drop your thoughts below. No judgment, just honesty. Chapter 9. The next attack wasn't subtle. Mooncrest didn't send lawyers or spies this time. They sent wolves, 24 of them, crossing the river under the crimson light of the blood moon. The alarms howled through the Nightbane compound like the city itself had taken a breath to scream. Mara's voice crackled over comms. They're breaching the south gate. Get to the command deck. Cassian was already moving, coat abandoned, eyes silver bright. Stay inside, he ordered. Not happening, I said, grabbing the encrypted drive from my desk. They want the evidence, not me. Nova, Cassian, if they get those files, everything we've done burns. His jaw tightened, but he nodded once. Then we end this together. By the time we reached the lower levels, chaos ruled. Sparks from shattered wiring rained over us. Wolves clashed in a blur of teeth and muscle, and the air pulsed with the raw electric scent of blood. I'd seen power before, in boardrooms, in treaties, but never like this. Cassian in battle was pure, terrifying grace. His wolf lived in the precision of every strike, the economy of movement, the quiet violence of purpose. But it was when one of the attackers lunged for me, silver blade drawn, that I felt it, a pulse beneath my skin, a low, impossible sound rising in my chest like a song I didn't know I remembered. My wolf. The world shifted, sharper, faster, brighter. Every heartbeat in the room became sound and scent. My bones hummed with something ancient and mine. The blade met my palm and stopped. My skin glowed faint gold where it touched me, energy crackling through the air before bursting outward. The attacker flew back, slamming into a wall hard enough to crack concrete. Cassian turned, eyes wide for half a second before pride took over. "Took you long enough." "Sorry," I panted, sparks still dancing over my fingertips. I was waiting for dramatic timing. When the last of the Mooncrest wolves retreated, the ground was slick with rain and ash. The drive was still in my hand, pulsing faintly against my skin. The artifact's seal, Nightbane's crest in wax, had cracked open during the fight. Inside, folded parchment glowed faintly under the moonlight streaming through the shattered windows. I unrolled it, breath catching. When counsel meets power and truth meets blood, balance will rise in her name. Cassian stepped closer, reading over my shoulder. That prophecy again. "It's not prophecy," I said slowly. "It's instruction." His brow furrowed. "Instruction for what?" "To bind the packs again. But not through marriage. Through shared leadership." His gaze snapped to mine. "You're saying—" "Yes," my pulse thrummed. "If we present this document to the council, the treaty doesn't just renew. It resets. Equal ground. No alpha supremacy. No Luna hierarchy. Just balance." Cassian exhaled, shaking his head in wonder. "You realize you've just rewritten 200 years of wolf politics." "Occupational hazard," I said, smiling. But beneath the humor, my body trembled with leftover energy. My wolf wasn't content to rest. She wanted recognition. She wanted him. Cassian noticed. His eyes darkened, his power brushing against mine like static. "You're glowing," he said, voice low. "Occupational hazard," I repeated, softer this time. The air between us thickened. Moonlight, blood, victory, the kind of silence that isn't empty but full of everything unsaid. He took one step closer, then another. "Cassian," I whispered, though I didn't move away. He lifted a hand, tracing the faint golden shimmer still glowing along my jaw. "Your wolf recognizes me." "She's impulsive," I said weakly. "She's honest," he murmured, "more than we've been." When his fingers brushed my neck, I felt it. The echo of something ancient unfurling between us. The mark, not forced, not bitten, chosen. A symbol, glowing faint silver against my skin, mirroring the scar on his wrist. Our wolves howled in unison, his deep and sure, mine new and raw but strong. The mark sealed, not as dominance, but as declaration. Partners, equals, not rebound, not replacement. Revolution. When the moon finally waned, the tower stood bruised but unbroken. The council called an emergency session the next morning. I walked beside Cassian through the marble halls, wearing the Nightbane crest and my new mark like armor. Seraphina and Liam were waiting, pale and furious. "You can't be serious," Seraphina hissed when the document was read aloud. "You'll destroy the hierarchy." "No," I said quietly. "We're redefining it," Liam sneered. "And who are you to dictate wolf law?" Cassian's hand brushed mine under the table, grounding me. "She's the woman who stopped your war, exposed your lies, and survived your bullets," he said evenly. "That's who." The council fell silent, and for the first time, the word advisor didn't feel big enough. Later, after the vote, after the smoke, after the storm, Cassian and I stood again on the rooftop. The city below hummed with new energy. Hope, fear, change. "Do you think they'll accept it?" I asked. They'll resist first, he said. Then they'll follow. I smiled faintly. Wolves always do. He turned to me, brushing his thumb along the fading glow of the mark. What about you? I'm not following anyone anymore, I said, but I'll walk beside you. His smile was slow, quiet, dangerous in the way peace always is when it follows war. Then we lead. And when he kissed me, under the dying moon, above a city finally learning how to heal, it wasn't about politics or revenge or prophecy. It was about choice. And for the first time, I wasn't anyone's rebound. I was the beginning. Epilogue. A year passes faster when you're trying to rebuild a world. The Nightbane and Mooncrest alliance became legend, a treaty rewritten in moonlight, balanced by two wolves who refused to follow the old rules. Some called it the Reformation. Others called it the mistake that roared. Me? I just called it Tuesday. I still wake up at dawn, stumble into the kitchen, and brew coffee strong enough to survive political meetings. Cassian says I'm addicted. I say I'm functional. The truth lives somewhere in the caffeine. From my office window, I can see the city bridge, the old border where we first fought for peace. Now it glows with alternating silver and gold lights, symbolizing unity. It's poetic, really. I'd suggested neon pink once. Cassian vetoed. Alpha humor, tragically limited. The packs haven't killed each other in months, which qualifies as progress. The council grudgingly adapted to shared rule. Mara runs security now. Theo runs the arbitration office. Together they bicker so loudly we've had to soundproof the meeting room. It's almost domestic. Almost. Cassian and I moved into the top floor of the rebuilt tower. It's not romantic. It's strategic, he says. Proximity to power and all that. But sometimes, when the city sleeps and he's leaning against the balcony railing in nothing but a black shirt and the kind of silence that tastes like promise, I think he lies. Tonight, the moon hung low, silver, familiar, soft. My mark still glows faintly under its light, no longer burning but steady. Cassian's matches it perfectly. The council calls it symbolic. They don't realize it's literal. He turned when I walked out. Another long day? 3 budget disputes, 1 broken printer, and Mara accidentally told the press we were expecting. His brows lifted. Expecting what? Apparently a baby or a scandal. She wasn't specific. He huffed a laugh. And which would bother you more? The printer. He smiled, slow, that same quiet dominance that made people underestimate the warmth underneath. You've changed. Have I? You used to flinch when people mentioned fate. I still do, I admitted. I just flinch quieter. He stepped closer, fingers brushing my wrist, tracing the faint shimmer of the mark. Do you ever regret choosing this? I met his gaze. Only when you hog the blankets. The quiet between us was warm, settled. The kind of peace built, not given. But fate, as always, hates boredom. The intercom chimed. Mara's voice crackled through, clipped and serious. Sorry to interrupt your marital bliss, Alpha and Advisor, but we've got company. Cassian frowned. Who? Mooncrest envoy. Says she has a message for Nova. Name's Serafina Quinn. The air in my lungs turned to ice. Cassian's jaw tightened. You don't have to see her. I know. I looked out over the city, lights stretching endless. But I want to. She arrived within the hour, dressed in white as always, but this time without a crown, or arrogance. Just exhaustion. Nice office, she said quietly. No fire damage this time. I gestured to the chair. Try not to cause any. She hesitated before sitting. I didn't come to fight. That would be a first. I came to apologize. I blinked. You rehearsed that, didn't you? Yes, she said simply. For months. There was something fragile in her voice, honest even. Mooncrest is different now. Father's stepping down. Liam's gone. Gone? She nodded. Exile. The council stripped his title after his last stunt. He disappeared into rogue lands. Cassian leaned against the doorframe, silent but alert. I thought you should know, Serafina continued, because he blames you both. And when he resurfaces, and he will, it won't be for politics. I exhaled slowly. You think he'll come for me? I know he will. She stood, smoothing her dress. I used to envy you, Nova. You were brave enough to become what they feared I'd never be. I watched her go, torn between pity and history. When the door closed, Cassian's hand found mine. You believe her? Yes, I said. And I'm not afraid. His thumb brushed my mark. Good. Because if he comes, he won't find the same woman he lost. I smiled faintly. He'll find the Alpha's rebound. Cassian's eyes glinted. And her Alpha. The moon slipped behind the clouds, and for a moment the world felt suspended. Peace, danger, love, all coiled together. But for the first time, I didn't dread what came next. Let fate knock, I'd answer. Because the girl who once watched her fated mate marry her sister was gone. And the woman standing in her place? She wrote her own destiny. If you'd rewrite your fate the way Nova did, claiming power, love, and peace on your own terms, hit subscribe and share this with your pack. Because some rebounds aren't revenge, they're rebirth.